Hello, and welcome to Esther's Gardening Adventures. I'm Esther, and today I'm going to be planting my garlic for the fall, which I'll then harvest in the late spring. So I'm in Maryland, zone 7A, and that means that for my zone we have pretty cold winters, so I'm growing what's called hardneck garlic versus softneck garlic, which is the variety that grows best in warmer climates and warmer zones. I have two types of garlic that I'll be growing this time. One is from the crop of garlic that I harvested in May or June. I'll link to that video so you can see it. And it's from, the original set was from Fruition Seeds, and it's called German white garlic. And this produced really, really big clove heads of garlic. So I was very pleased with these. As I've been peeling the garlic, I've been saving the biggest cloves in this bowl. Are pretty large cloves individually. I mean, yeah, well, like 1 to 2 inches across. So I've done this 1 year, so I've had 1 year's experience. What my instructions that I followed last year that worked really well is that you plant your garlic between Halloween and Thanksgiving. And so we're still before Thanksgiving, so I have time. And you plant them 2 to 3 inches deep, about 4 to 6 inches apart, depending on the bulb, and at least for the hardneck garlic, this is true. And then you cover the ground with, a good, I think I did like 4 inches of leaves from my trees, from my yard, to give them insulation in the winter. Now they might sprout in the midwinter or early spring, or even like within a couple weeks of planting them, and that's fine. Hardneck garlic is meant to handle those temperatures as long as you have that nice insulation in there. All right, so I'll count these up and tell you how many I have. And then the other one that I'm growing is called Chesnok red garlic, and I got it from Mad River Garlic Growers. They gave me this nice bag to put it in, for when I harvest next year. But I got 2 large bulbs, and you can see these grow really big bulbs, and they have that beautiful sort of reddish hue to them for both of them. And I'm going to show you real quick how to get them ready for planting. So basically you want to, and I always keep a little something for the extra little bits that fall off. But basically when you're prepping your garlic to plant, you don't plant it like this. You want the individual cloves, and you want to try to keep the skin on around them if you can. So I'm just kind of crushing it here and trying to break it up. There we go. All right. You can see there's different ones here. And when it comes to planting garlic, size really does matter. You want to plant the biggest cloves because those will produce bigger cloves and bulbs next time. I've also heard that you can plant garlic cloves that have some skin missing, and I think, or like broken off a little bit, and I did that last year, and I had 100% germination rate. So I have found personally that it works fine, but you are risking it a little bit more, I think, if you plant ones that have some of the skin missing. I have to clear out the bed that I'm going to put these in, and I'm going to amend the soil first by adding some compost to it so it has refreshed nutrients for planting these up. All right, let me get to breaking these up, and then I'll tell you how many cloves we're having for planting. Here we have our German white garlic cloves, and over here we have the Chesnok red garlic cloves. And these are the Chesnok red cloves that are just a little too small. If you look in comparison here, between this and this. The first thing I need to do is clear out my bed. So I've marked here where I need to stop planting the garlic. This is where I have my black-eyed Susans, which are perennial. And somebody suggested marking on the little flags that I put down the actual variety that I'm growing and the places that I'm growing them. So I'm going to clear that half of the garden, this half of the 4x4 bed out, so that I can plant garlic on that end of it. Now I have the bed cleared. I used a mix of 3/4 of a bag of leaf grow that was left over that I got in the early summer. So it's probably about almost 1 cubic feet, maybe 3/4 a cubic foot. Then I added some mushroom compost that I got from the monastery I visited this summer in South Carolina, and some more leaf compost that I got from a nursery recently. I've never worked with mushroom compost before, especially from this location, and I've heard that it can actually be a fairly high salt content depending on sort of how it's sourced and how it's managed when mushrooms are used, and then this is harvested afterwards. So I decided to not just go with mushroom compost, but to mix it in with other things to help balance it out. And I think it's about 2 inches I added, and since we plant the garlic about 3 inches down, that means it'll still have sort of that fluffy ground underneath to set its roots in. And I tried to mix some of it around my black-eyed Susans and a little bit around this side, but I am gonna, what they call, amend the beds, add more to the beds in the spring, or maybe even later on once these flowers have died back, these plants have died back. Now, black-eyed Susans don't bloom in their first year when they're grown from seed. Now, some people might have had better luck than me, but it's pretty typical in most circumstances. And these were plants that I grew using the winter sowing process. If you want to check out how that worked, check out my winter sowing 101 videos. All right, so now let's get to planting up this garlic. When you plant the garlic, you want to plant it this way, with this narrow tip up. So I'm going to dig down. This is a 1, 2, 3. You're supposed to do 2 to 3 inches. So I'm going to dig down to about there. About there. Whoops. Covering up the other clove. I'm just going to plop it in there. Where's the other clove I put down? I don't want to get the other clove caught up in this. There it is. Okay. Tamp it down a little. There we go. And so on and so forth. Now that I have the bulbs all planted, it's time for me to add leaves. And because this area is so windy, I'm actually going to use this old chicken wire. It's kind of rusty, to put around the 2 sides that the wind blows the most around, to kind of keep the leaves in, but I have to put the leaves up first. And I have these nails sticking out from when I did the square foot gardening process using this bed, so I can attach the rusty chicken wire fence to this to help anchor it. So I have a confession to make. As soon as I finished the garlic, I realized I planted them too close together, about 4 inches. And for the Chesnok red, it says 6 inches. For the German white, it says 4 to 6. So I went out this morning, and I have a quick second clip to show you. And that meant it took up 4 rows plus a little extra that I had to tuck in. So about 30 of them, I think, are evenly spaced and about 6 inches apart, both lengthwise and between rows wise. And then there's probably about a handful, 5 to 6, that I sort of had to tuck in because they didn't fit in those 4 rows, and I was getting to the point where the perennial flowers were. So we will see the ones that I had to tuck in and will have less spacing. We'll see how they perform compared to the ones that I reordered to the right spacing. And also, I should mention, the ground was wet The compost I had used was pretty moist and the ground was wet, and it got down to 28 last night. So I didn't water them first day. And when I replanted them today, the ground is pretty moist and wet, almost as if I watered them in. So I'm not going to water them today. I'm probably going to water them tomorrow or the next day after we get past the point of things being below 32. Just because I don't want the water to cause them to get colder than they need to be before they start getting settled. And also I think the ground is wet enough for them to start doing their thing. And I also added a little bit more leaves to the top to make sure there was enough insulation for them. So fingers crossed, guys. Now, if you like this video, please hit the like button. If you aren't already a subscriber, please consider doing so. And otherwise, I'll see you next time.